I think we will share with everyone. So the concept, right, comes from because currently the CSS snapshot is designed at the same level as volume. So it directly working with storage volumes. When user takes snapshots for a volume, right, you need to specify a specific volume you want to take snapshot from, which represented by PVC. So in the snapshot spec, you have a PVC name. But for user point of view, right, they often work with their like applications represented by the pod or a higher level, such as stateful sets, a group of pods. So if an application, right, needs to read write multiple storage volumes, it's very common that you need to take snapshot for all these volumes together at the same time. And also, in order to take like consistent, application consistent snapshots, it requires to prepare your application. So you pause the read write of your, especially the write, your application to volumes. Also, maybe flush the file system, freeze it before taking the snapshots. And after you prepare, you take snapshot, you can and the snapshot is cut, you can resume your application. So based on these considerations, so we design, we call it a group snapshot API object to address of these problems. So for group snapshots API object, first it can represent a group of snapshots taken together. And the source of these snapshots would be API object, such as pod or stateful set or other like possibly deployment, etc. And so we're going to have a source for the group snapshot spec. We'll see the API a little bit later in detail. And also this group snapshot spec should have a hook. So the hook includes pre-snapshot hook and post-snapshot hook. And in the hook, we are thinking, so because this is basically to prepare application before taking snapshot. And so the spec need to specify, okay, which pod and also which container and how you want to prepare them. So it should include the pod name, container name, and the commands you want to execute for this container before taking the snapshots. And you can list, like you can have a list of such pod containers and the commands. And similarly, the post snapshot hook would be something like what you're going to execute after the snapshot is taken. And for file system freeze, so currently since we're out of trade and we are thinking we can use sidecar container, so this container basically have the utility to freeze your file system. And you need to specify your container name and the command to freeze your file system and also unfreeze it. The group snapshot spec also can contain a filter so that if your policy set have a list of volumes, but you are not going to take snapshots for all of them, so you can specify, okay, which particular volumes you want to take snapshots from. And this is the kind of initial, very initial design. This is the group snapshot struct. It includes spec and status. So in the spec, you see we have source. Again, this is kind of object reference. And so we say this kind of the source could be a pod or could be a stateful set. And so I think here we're missing the pre-hook and the post-hook spec. We will add them we should add them. And also, you see there is a filter called included PVC names. So that means which PVC you want to include, take snapshot in this group. And so after the snapshots are taken, you will have a list of volume snapshots. And those information will be put in the volume snapshot list.
Oh, I see. I was thinking the volume snapshot list was an input. It's an output instead.
Yeah, actually, it's an outcome. Yeah.
So, could that go? How can we? How can we? How you say? Make that more clear, because it looks like an input to me.
Yeah. At first, we are thinking, should we put it in the status? So that means okay. But it seems also not really appropriate to put in the status if you put a volume snapshot list. And also, I'm kind of wondering whether it is have any use case that we can support. And I say, manually you put snapshots in this list to form a group.
Yeah, because that's the result, right? So
yeah. So right now, the proposal is more like, okay, you take snapshots, a group snapshot from a pod, and then the result is a list of snapshots. Yes. But so if you want to make it very clear, we can say, okay, resulting volume snapshot list, something like that. But I also wonder whether we could support like manually to form a group. So this could also be as an input, and just a thought, yeah.
Maybe here's I'm not saying we do this, but here's just a brainstorm that we have another object called group snapshot volume, like snapshot list or something like that, and it kind of like the differentiation between the request and the output, which is the PVC and the PV, right? And that's bound together, the reference. Could we do something like that here, or is that too complicated? Again, it's just a brainstorm. I don't mean to suggest that.
Yeah. That's an interesting idea. So we can kind of think through a little bit about that.
Okay.
Currently, yes. So basically, we only need to know after we take snapshots, a group snapshot, right? It will generate, all the volume snapshots API object, and then we store the information to some list. Yeah.
Yes.
So the only thing is, if we have that, it's kind of complicated. I think we actually started with that, and then there were so many structures we need to manage. So we ended up just merging.
No, I don't disagree that there's going to be too many, and I completely agree that it's more complicated. But I'm just trying to create that situation where there is a request and there's a new object created that's bound on result, right?
At a minimum, I think it belongs in the status, not in the spec. The spec generally describes the request, and the status, the response.
How does the PVC and PV refer to each other?
Nah, yeah, it's in the spec.
It's in the spec, but
is it like by ref, like something like that? PVC ref? I forget.
Yeah, there's a pointer in the spec that points to the PV, but that's more like it's permanent. It's kind of like the definition of that PV is that it's bound to this particular PV. Versus over here, it's like I see it more closely to the volume snapshot object. When you create it, the spec describes what your intention is, and then the status says, here's what I've been able to do.
So that means that would one request of a group snapshot spec be, once completed, be immutable?
The spec should be immutable, yes.
So then, in a way, it is bound to that result. You can have another result.
Correct.
So then,
I
think the problem is that it might be when you mutate it. So I guess
isn't it like
PVC breaks that, but in general, I think my understanding is the spec should be immutable after creation, and then status is the things that get decorated on top of it afterwards.
Then PVC breaks that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just trying to have the same behavior. Like for a customer, right? As a client, I send the PVC. I understand this is my result.
Mm-hmm.
I send this. I want like that same type of behavior. That's all I'm asking. Like that idea, right? If we do the
taking a
status
step back from this, when I started initially thinking about this, I was thinking about not just one object, but potentially separate objects for each source. I like this idea. It'll prevent the proliferation of, like a pod snapshot, a stateful set snapshot, and so on and so forth. But one drawback of this is that if we want to do customization that is specific to a specific source, we don't really have a way to do that. So I was imagining things like, at a stateful set level, you may want to be able to customize, I don't know, like how the snapshot is taken that's custom to the way that stateful set works. I can't come up with an example right now. And that doesn't apply to the way that pods, that option doesn't exist for pods. Have you thought about that at all?
There are many, it seems, different way of taking snapshots for stateful set level, because stateful set contains a group of pods, and each pod have their volumes. But normally for stateful set, all the pods kind of similar, so they use the same pod template, and also the volume snap or the PVC, right, use the same template. And we have a way, let's say, have a filter so that you can say which particular PVC you want include or which not. Other than that, we say it could be required that all the pods need to be stopped before taking the snapshot in order to have a consistent snapshot, group snapshot. Some application might not have such a requirement, so you can take a snapshot for each volume, sequentially. In that case, it's not very necessary to use group snapshots. You can potentially just create snapshots for each volume, and after you finish it, or you take another one, or you can do whatever way you want, because they are more or less independent. So we are thinking group snapshots often used to, let's say, take a group snapshot that require, let's say, to take some actions for their pods. And then after all these pods are prepared, we take snapshot them all together. And then we can execute post pod actions after taking snapshots. Otherwise, you can just use snapshots per volume that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like what you're saying is that you've already thought through the different possibilities, and all those possibilities are captured here.
Not all, but maybe some.
Some, yeah. I think there might be some options that are not captured here, but I can't think of any right now. But I think if we do end up having such options, we could introduce a parameters field here, and then the parameters would be custom to the source. I think that would be sufficient to capture that.
So we also talked with workload team. We kind of have initial discussion. Yes, there seems different possibilities, whether this group snapshot can capture all the possibilities. But right now, until we finalize, right, so we haven't iterate every possibility, and but seems it has kind of good structure of support, at least the majority of those use cases. Yeah. So
for a stateful set, if for included PVC names, is that going to be required?
No, it's optional.
It's optional. So if it's optional, then all the PVCs are included by default?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Or we can say excluded PVC name. So
Yep.
if you don't specify any PVC name, then we just take everything, yeah.
The other thing that I was thinking about was the hooks. Originally, I imagined them to be on the pod object, not on some external object.
Yeah.
So
yes,
on
yes.
pod object.
Right. Yeah. We talked about that. So so if it's in pod object, right, you need to kind of update your pod, which is not very convenient, and put all this information in this new API object. When you take snapshot, it's more convenient to to use. And but in the end, no. So for prepare a pod, right? It's before we thought, okay, we use Kubernetes, which manage the life cycle of pod, and we put some kind of hook. But this require interaction with Kubernetes. It seems give us quite some challenges. And actually, in order to execute a command for a container, right, to prepare application, right now we can just use API to execute a pod container. We can do that directly through the API, like pod execute command for container. So this can handled by our, let's say, group snapshot controller without interacting with the kubelet.
How does a command run? Wouldn't that be that Kubernetes has to run like a container on the same pod? How would this run inside the container of the user?
So it's similar to like user can use kube control, like exact. You specify your pod name, the container name, and then the command. Then you can execute a command for a container. It's similar, right? So here we can just use kind of exact to execute.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Is it possible to have again, and this is a question, jobs? Can we do it with jobs instead, or also like as a create a job object? Yeah.
So you mean if you have a job object and you want to take snapshot for your job?
No, the other way, like as a hook, it would be a job object where I can track how I execute it and see the results and things. Because a pre-hook, a hook doesn't have like the logs and stuff, right? So I won't be able to see like debug it or see if it worked, right?
We thought we can put the events or relevant maybe arrows information into this group snapshot status.
Okay.
So then you have a place to see, because we should have a status in this if anything fail. And also there will be something related to, okay, how you want to retry, like whether you want to give up after some time. All this information we kind of have to include it actually in the spec. And also status will show, okay, what is the status. If any, like we're failed and we give up, we need to kind of put this information into the status here.
That's fine. I'm just wondering, you know, if we can get logs and debugging, then that's okay. I was just wondering. So
yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
Is there a description of how you define or the actual API for snapshot hook somewhere that we can look at?
Here. So we just have a kind of initial thoughts. So this is more like a struct. I think we haven't put into the API below. So that struct will contain the pod name, container name, and the command. So it's similar to if you see we have a live probe or readiness probe in pod spec. So if you check that spec, is just for each container, right? You can have I think.
So if I have something like a stateful set, a stateful set definition is a template for what I want my pod to look like. Once that stateful set is created, I could have hundreds of actual instances of the stateful set, so hundreds of pods, and each one of those pods could have multiple containers. So would the expectation be that the list of hooks contains a separate hook for every single pod in the stateful set?
That would be kind of give us a little trouble. So because we need to know, okay, which pod and which container, what command you need to execute.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have like hundreds of them, but if they all execute the same command, we might have a way to like simplify, okay, all the pods, like, because remember in stateful set, all the pod kind of share the same template. You just have pod 0, pod 1, pod 2.
Mm-hmm.
And in our pre-hook, pre-snapshot hook, we just more or less say for all the pods, you execute the same command, all the pod container, if they are like share the same thing.
Do you mean the replica number is 100? Like
yes.
100 replicas? Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Then I think most likely they share the same command to prepare, right? I normally, if they have all very different 100 pods, then that'll be difficult. But if they basically share the same template, they execute the same thing, then we can probably just put one command, right, for each pod, for a pod, and all of them should execute the same thing.
So the primary reason for not defining this on the pod object was to prevent the implementation from being dependent on kubelet?
Yes, and also for user point of view, right? Before they take snapshot, they have to, let's say, kubectl apply some changes to their pod, which is also not very convenient for them. So here you separate like the snapshot thing to their pod spec, to their pod definition, right? When they start their pods in their pod spec YAML file, they might not put all the snapshot information there yet, and they start their pods. And yeah,
after I'll let you finish. Sorry.
Okay. After that, you want to take snapshots for the pod volumes, and if we require you need to put pre-hook in the pod spec, then user need to like manually like update their pod spec, like change their pod, and then take snapshot. So I see this is not very convenient for them to do that way. For if you put everything in their separate group snapshot API object, right, they can yes, easily to change here.
I think it will be definitely not convenient to put it in the project, but it will give you a concrete information on how to do it for the user and the controller for group snapshot. Maybe we can start with that and then add enhance it by saying you can add it to the group snapshot instead. But I just feel like adding it as a pointer is going to be difficult.
Pointer.
Like as a hook, the way that you're adding the group snapshot points to a pod. I say I want you to do this here, but maybe adding it in the pod is more direct, right?
But if you add in the pod, right, who will responsible for execute this? Kubernetes. Like then Kubernetes you need to know when you need to execute this command for the pod.
So
and
can the controller read the object and get the information from it the same way that was going to execute it before?
So you mean the snapshot controller or group snapshot controller?
The group snapshot, yeah.
Need to check, okay, the pod, some.
Yeah, like it starts out. Yeah, go ahead. I'll let you finish.
It's possible, but what's the benefit of getting from, you need to specify in the pod spec?
Yeah, it's just that as a user, I can be more concrete on how exactly I want this container to be frozen on this other container. I can be very specific, right? If not, I would have to go to the group snapshot object and somehow describe the object and its container and what I want to do.
Okay, so I think that's also like possible to do. So similar here, if you define a pod, and this is called the Leibniz probe, and that. So similar, we have a pre-snapshot.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Command, and you put some information here. Maybe similar. You need to have a timeout, etc.
Yes, because now you're in complete control of exactly how this container, as the one setting it up, right?
So this information, the pre-snapshot command, will not actually handled by Kubernetes. It's handled by the snapshot controller. So snapshot controller will read it and execute it.
Yeah. Just a suggestion. I just think that provides more control and reliability. No, I guess the word I'm looking for is the correct expectation from the user, right?
So if it's just for a single pod, maybe this is better, but we're also thinking about the stateful set. There are different requirements for the stateful set. It can get very complicated. Because sometimes you want to take a group snapshot of the whole stateful set, everything there, where, like all the replicas, all the volumes. There are different use cases, right? So, so if you need to do that, then it's better to give the stateful set as a source, right? So that you take a snapshot of everything there, not just one pod. And if we just set this at the pod level, then for stateful set, we have to do something else. So just thinking about the consistency, if we can just use the group snapshot, then we can have different sources. So,
and I completely agree with that. I'm not talking about the sources. I'm talking about the hook.
Yeah.
So in the stateful set, you would have the pod template, right? And in the pod template, you would have a hook for freezing your container. That's all it is in there, right? And then your group snapshot has your stateful set name as the source. So everything will work the same. So I agree with what you're saying. It's just I'm just describing the hook. Where's the hook going to be? So
for stateful set, you could have it in the stateful set template, and that way it gets applied automatically to every single pod. But I think that you have to make
I thought there would be different cases, right? I think when Jing talked to the workload team, they talked about there are different cases. Sometimes you actually want to apply different comments to different pod, even inside the same stateful set. That's complicated.
But I think so. It should be fine because in stateful set you have pod template. That is how they generate their pods. And,
right, but I thought you said for different replica, they may actually run different things for different pod, right? So that it's not like you can use one template. That's my understanding. I thought last time when we talked about this. If it's all the same, then that'll be more straightforward.
But I think stateful set only allow you like have one pod template. Right? I'm not sure.
Right, but I thought when you but I think when you prepare those pods, I thought there are differences. You could do different things for different pods, even they're all within the same stateful set. That's my understanding. After we talked about last time, maybe I misunderstood.
Maybe we can just take it offline. You could just
Yeah.
write down the comment, and then we can investigate it. If it
Right.
works, it works.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's of course more straightforward if we can just specify everything in this one hot template. Yeah, that'll be easier.
Okay, so here we can like decide first the pre-hook should be put in pod spec or just directly in group snapshot spec. We can leave it to next meeting to decide after we investigate the pros and cons. And yeah, for file system freeze, here we probably need put in the snapshot spec, group snapshot spec, because it's a separate sidecar container would be like to execute this. It's not part of a particular pod or stateful set. So we still need some kind of pre-snapshot hook, I believe, in the group snapshot spec for file system freeze. So right now for the status, it's too simple. So, but we should include the arrow at least. So right now, ready just means everything is kind of good. So you prepare application and you take snapshot, a group snapshot successfully, and then we can put the arrow to true to indicate it's ready to be used. And then for each volumes, so this group snapshot API object, right? After the controller watch this and see this object, and then we'll create multiple volume snapshot API objects. And for each one, we can have a group snapshot ID to kind of reference, okay, which group this particular snapshot belongs to. So we can have a relationship between this group and a particular volume snapshot.
Does stateful set do something like this with pods? I think stateful sets ends up using a deterministic name, so it doesn't need to do this. Could we do the same?
I think it's possible to do that. Yeah, but you might want to take periodically, let's say, for the same, but then the group snapshot name also need to be changed. Basically, I'm thinking, okay, you might periodically take group snapshot, right? Then each time you need, currently we haven't designed in that way, so that means each time you need to have a different group snapshot name, you need to change it.
Right. The assumption is that each group snapshot object generates one set of snapshots, and that's it, right?
Right. And I think we need to maybe think a little bit more, because really it's often people take periodically snapshots, and then each time they need to change their group snapshot name in order to do that, which is also not very ideal. Yeah. So yes, it's possible, like you said, based on the name, like you can identify which group it belongs to. Now we have a group of snapshots representative, then how we use this group. So that seems also leaves a lot of questions. So currently, for particular volume, right, PVC, we add a data source so that you can create your volume from a particular snapshot. And for example, for stateful set, you have a PVC template, and then the data source, if you put data source there, then everyone, like all the volume will use the same data source. That means every volume will create it with the same snapshot. And when we talk to workload team, this is like one use case. And also it's possible for each volume, right? You want to create a volume from a particular snapshot from, let's say, a group. I'm thinking here, the data source, we can also allow to take a group snapshot name there. Like the kind would be group snapshot. And the PVC name and their snapshot name kind of have a relationship, so we can identify, okay, which snapshot you want to use to provision this PVC, the volume. So that for example, in your cipher set PVC template, the data source would be a group snapshot name.
Jing, you're talking about the PVC claim spec, or are you talking about some other spec?
PVC spec, yeah.
But then how do you know which snapshot to use if you give a group snapshot?
So the snapshot name have a relationship with their PVC name.
Okay.
Normally we can have this deterministic relationship, like PVC1, then PVC1 snapshot, PVC2, PVC2 snapshot. So this is how we like use for cipher set, right? Yeah, the pod 1 will use PVC1, pod 0 use PVC0. So similar, the relationship between snapshot and PVC also we can determine that way.
Okay.
But it's possible we have other like cases that might not covered by this, but here it's just, I think, cover one common use case, and the other is data source would be a single snapshot. Any questions for like a restore from a group snapshot? So there are like other like if there are more complicated use case, user can use kind of manually way. So you are going to have a group snapshot, and each one, like again, it's represented by volume snapshots API object. And if you need to provision a volume from a snapshot, right, you can always put create your PVC and then put your data source with your particular snapshot name there. But user need to figure out which snapshot they want to use. So for cipher set, it's possible that we can just give a data source. You put a group snapshot name there, and so that which snapshot is going to use to create volume can be like handled by the controller instead of user need to put everything. Yeah. So overall, this design, right, to represent a group snapshot. Any question for that? Does it make sense to address the concerns we have last time?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still kind of in the design stage of it,
Right,
you know.
right.
So yeah, we can. I'll still be looking at it, still be reviewing it.
Yeah, so we need to put more details based on the discussion like we have so far.
Yeah, and yeah, and let me know if you ever need like an a meeting not scheduled. Just ping me if you want to get my opinion directly, or send me the link, whatever you want. I can help.
Yeah, sure. So
yeah, I think overall this is I like this better than focusing on storage group consistent snapshots. Having application consistent snapshots, I think, is a better first step. I think there are some questions about how we're going to do the hooks, how we're going to actually, what this object is going to look like, whether we want one object or multiple objects. all that kind of stuff. But I think that's details. Overall, seems like the right direction.
Yeah. Is it possible to put like a, not like maybe like minutes, but like a set of questions that we found in this meeting so we can make sure we track them?
Yes, definitely. So after the meeting, CNI will like add all those things into the doc.
Okay.
And put all the possible options, right? And then we can decide like which we want to take. And I think today we have the pre-snapshot book question. And for group snapshot, whether we want to have, say, a corresponding, let's say, I'm not sure how to call it, but group snapshot or group snapshot more like a content. I think, Luis, you are like mentioned this, right? Basically, like PVC and PV.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, just a suggestion.
So currently, yeah, we will think about it more, but I think it's, if possible, one object is better than two. Otherwise, we always handle like all these binding problems, etc. Yeah.
Completely get it. Yeah, completely understand.
Yeah. And for restore, we can think more use cases, but currently, like this is one way we can use as a group, right? To for user, it's much easier. Instead of for each PVC, they need to manually put the snapshot name in their PVC spec. Yeah. And we'll add more information related to like error handling. So because this involves many steps to prepare application, take snapshot, and then finish and resume application. So any step might fail, right? We normally for Kubernetes controller, we keep trying. But for snapshot again, it will has trouble. We might want to give up at some point. And then after this, how we clean up. So we may like give up in the middle of some step. Then we need to make sure we kind of recover from that point. That we will like also address and talk about in next meeting.
Is it possible to, like, I'm just thinking from the application point of view, if I wanted to do a restore of my pod, of my stateful set, I would want something like we do already with PVCs, where they automatically dynamically provision the storage. It would be nice. I'm not saying this is possible, but it would be nice as a stateful set to provide the group snapshot, and then have it take it from there, right? Like I want to create a stateful set based on this group snapshot. You see what I mean?
Yes. I thought, but it's similar. Like I'm saying, in stateful set, you have PVC template, right? And in the PVC template, you just put your data source as a group snapshot ID.
So, hey, Jing, I thought in the doc we have a place that talking about how to manually do that.
That's manually.
Right.
That's kind of a manually way to do that. But here we want to use group snapshot, right, instead of manually do everything.
Okay, so
right, but you have to manually change your stateful set because you need to change its source of the PVC to use the snapshot.
So, I mean.
So can a stateful set, can an object refer to a group snapshot instead of PVC?
Yeah, but in stateful set, you anyway need a PVC template, right? So
And then would the PVC template be based on a group snapshot?
the data source, you have a data source.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
And then we think controller will kind of mapping like from each snapshot to each PVC, right? It will generate a list of PVC, let's say 0, 1, 2, and then each one will take data source from snapshot, let's say snapshot 0, snapshot 1, snapshot 2, something like that.
Okay. Okay. That's fine.
Right. So it's kind of, I think, what you described, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. This is great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So we need to make sure based on the name, we can figure out which snapshot like corresponding to which PVC. It might not cover all the use cases, but I think one major use case we can cover. So each volume have a corresponding snapshot when you take them. And then when you recover them, the relationship would be the same. So based on the naming, we can be able to do that. I'm not sure if there's a question.
Yeah, there's a question on the chat. Yeah. Sat the carrot.
Okay. Need the application to say when safe to take snapshot. So yeah, we are saying we will put a pre-snapshot hook, and then the controller will execute that hook first. After that execute successfully returned, then controller will go ahead to take snapshot.
Okay.
So I think the last one is we're thinking, okay, if you want to take group snapshot periodically, right? Currently, you have to change your group name each time, and maybe we'll think even the higher level how we deal with that. So users don't need to worry about changed group snapshot name each time. So we'll add all these like feedback and questions into the doc, and so there are a few other things related to like design about controller, but I don't think we have enough time already to talk about those yet. We can leave to the next meeting, and I will definitely share this doc to everyone, so you can leave your comments, feedback, your concerns. Are all welcome. So any other questions for this meeting?
No, thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And see you next time.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.